Welcome to English Podcast for Listening and Speaking. If you feel this video is helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Now, let's start.
Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever, just stared at a diagram, maybe for something like the IELTS Writing Task 1, and felt completely stuck? Like, how do I even start describing this?
Oh, absolutely. It's a common feeling, that sense of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, it really can be a challenge.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Whether you're actually prepping for IELTS or maybe you're just curious about how to communicate visual stuff effectively, this should be helpful.
Right, or even if you just enjoy kind of breaking down how information gets translated from image to text.
Exactly. We've been looking closely at insights from Liz, who's, a real expert in IELTS preparation. Years of experience, direct feedback.
So it's practical advice, yeah. Stuff that comes from actually helping students succeed.
Precisely. Think of this as a structured approach, a clear pathway to tackle those diagrams confidently.
Okay, so our mission then is pretty clear. Lay out the key steps for describing these diagrams well. Specifically for Task 1, we're drawing on Liz's practical experience, right?
That's the plan. And the very first step, according to Liz, is maybe the most fundamental. You have to understand the diagram, really get what it's showing.
It's more than just a quick look then.
Definitely. It's about grasping the purpose, the overall story it tells. And a huge part of that initial step is crafting a clear introduction and, crucially, an overview.
Ah, the overview. Liz really stresses that part, doesn't she? Calls it vital.
She does, and it makes sense. The overview gives the examiner or anyone reading the main points right away. It summarizes the key stages or the main message of the visual.
Okay, let's make that concrete. There's that rainwater diagram example Liz uses.
Yeah. How
an Australian town processes rainwater for drinking.
Yeah, that's a great example. So for that one, a good overview following Liz's advice would quickly hit the main stages. Collection from houses, the filtering, then storage, the chemical treatment, and finally distribution back to homes.
Or is the whole journey, basically.
In a nutshell. And she has a very specific tip for signaling this overview, doesn't she?
Using the word overall.
Exactly. Start the overview paragraph with overall. Liz strongly recommends it. It's like a signpost, simple but really effective for clarity. Tells the examiner, here comes the big picture.
Like a headline. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, step 1. Understand the diagram, know its purpose, and write that clear overall overview early on. What's next? What's step 2?
Step 2 is all about structure, how you organize your description logically.
Okay, so the typical flow.
Well, Liz points towards a pretty standard, effective structure. You have your introduction, and then that crucial overall overview we just discussed.
Right.
And then the main body, which is usually broken down into paragraphs detailing the stages or different aspects shown.
And how many body paragraphs does she usually suggest? I think she recommends aiming for 2 after the intro and overview.
That's right. 2 is often a good target. It helps break down the information without making the paragraphs too long or jumbled.
Keeps it digestible. So back to the rainwater example. How would you split that into 2 body paragraphs?
Logically, you could group the first stages together. So body paragraph 1 might cover the rainwater collection from the roofs, how it goes through the drains, and then the filtering process.
Okay, the collection and initial filtering.
Exactly. And then body paragraph 2 picks up from there.
So that would cover the storage tank part.
Precisely. It would detail the water going into storage, then the chemical treatment, which is obviously key for drinking water, and finally, how that treated water gets pumped back to the houses.
Got it. So it follows the flow of the process naturally across the 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, it creates a clear narrative structure, intro, overview, stages 1 and 2, stages 3 and 4, something like that.
And Liz also mentioned something about formatting, about the look of the paragraphs.
Yes, a practical point, but important for readability. She advises leaving a blank line between each paragraph.
Just visually separates the sections.
Exactly. Makes it much easier for the examiner to see your structure and follow your thinking. It's all about clarity.
Okay, clear structure, logical grouping in usually 2 body paragraphs, plus those blank lines. Makes sense. What's the third key step Liz highlights?
Step 3 dives into the language itself. Using precise vocabulary is crucial and equally important. Don't add information that isn't actually in the diagram.
Ah, the precision point. She had that example about collected versus recollected, right, with the student Javier.
That's a perfect illustration. Recollected suggests gathering again, which wasn't what the diagram showed. It was the initial collection. A small word, but it shows perhaps a lack of careful observation or vocabulary.
Details matter. And what about grammar? She mentioned the passive voice.
Yes, because these diagrams often show a process happening to something like the rainwater, the passive voice is often the most natural and accurate choice.
So things like rainwater is collected or the water is filtered.
Exactly. Water is treated. It keeps the focus on the process and the object undergoing the process, rather than on who or what is doing the action, which often isn't specified anyway.
Makes sense. And the other part of step 3, not adding outside info, that sounds critical.
Absolutely critical. Liz warns strongly against this. She mentions students like Esther and Javier sometimes writing about, say, microorganisms or leaves or plastics being filtered out.
Even if the diagram just shows a box labeled filter.
Precisely. If the diagram doesn't explicitly show leaves or microorganisms, you shouldn't mention them. You have to stick strictly to the visual information provided. No assumptions, no outside knowledge.
Even if it seems obvious in the real world.
Even then, be a faithful reporter of the diagram, and that extends to being specific too. Liz corrected a student, Emily, for just saying water falling on roofs.
It should be rainwater.
Yes, because that's what the diagram specifies at that initial stage. Use the precise term shown. Be accurate at every step.
Okay, be precise. Stick to the visual facts only. Got it. Step 4, what's that about?
Step 4 deals with a very practical constraint. Length, the word count.
Ah, yes. The magic number.
Well, Liz consistently advises aiming for over 150 words. Ideally, she suggests, somewhere in the range of 170 to 190 words is a good target for Task 1.
And she's seen plenty of students fall short. You mentioned Maya, Akshan, Light.
Yes, Ibrahim, Mary. Quite a few examples where the response was just too brief. And writing too little often means you haven't really covered all the key features or explained the stages sufficiently.
So it's not just about hitting 151 words, it's that a shorter response probably lacks detail.
Exactly. You need enough words to properly describe each part of the diagram, explain the steps, and crucially, connect them logically. Use connecting words, explain the sequence. A short answer often feels underdeveloped.
Right. You need to flesh it out with the details that are there. Okay, adequate length through detailed, connected description. That leads us to the final key step, step 5.
Step 5 circles back to the beginning, really focusing on mastering that introduction and the overview, making sure they're done right.
So reinforcing their importance. For the intro, Liz just wants a clear statement of what the diagram shows.
Yep, keep it direct. For the rainwater example, something like, the diagram illustrates how an Australian town processes rainwater to use as drinking water. Clear, identifies the visual, states the purpose. Done.
Simple, effective, and the overview again.
Yes, reiterating that it needs to summarize the main stages concisely. Her model for the rainwater diagram was, overall, rainwater is collected from houses and then passes through a filter into storage where it is then treated with chemicals to make it fit for human consumption.
It's all the key phases. And she's really firm on using that word overall to start it.
She is. Apparently, a student named Xiao asked about this specifically. Liz doubled down, saying, yes, use overall.
Why so insistent? Is it a rule?
Not a strict grammar rule, maybe, but Liz frames it as best practice for report writing, which is essentially what Task 1 is. It signals function clearly. It tells the reader immediately, here's the summary, no ambiguity.
Makes it foolproof for the examiner to spot it. Yeah.
Exactly. Clarity and directness are key.
All right, let's try and bring it all together then. The key steps from Liz's perspective for acing these diagram descriptions are, 1, really understand the visual, its purpose, and make sure you include a clear overall overview near the start.
Right. Step 1 is foundational.
2, structure it logically. Intro, overview, there may be 2 body paragraphs detailing the stages using blank lines for clarity.
Yep, clear structure.
3, use precise language, the right words, passive voice where needed, and crucially, only describe what you actually see. No adding bits.
Precision and sticking to the facts. Very important.
4, write enough. Aim for that 170-190 word count range by developing each stage with details from the diagram and connecting your sentences.
Adequate development, yes.
And finally, 5, really nail that introduction clear and direct in the overview, making sure to start it with overall for maximum clarity.
That captures it perfectly, and underlying all of this is Liz's core message. Be precise, be informative, be clear. You're reporting on the visual data.
So the final thought for you, the listener. These principles aren't just for passing an exam, are they?
Not at all. Think about it. How often do we need to explain something visual in everyday life or work? A chart, a graph, maybe even just assembling furniture from instructions.
True. That ability to look at something visual and translate it clearly and logically into words, That's a really useful skill, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you think about applying this kind of structured clarity to all sorts of communication, not just diagrams.
Definitely something to mull over. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us into the world of IELTS diagrams.
My pleasure. And for anyone listening who is working on IELTS or just wants to improve this skill, keep exploring resources, keep practicing these techniques.
Absolutely. Here's to making sense of the visual world, one clear description at a time.